live now, and I'm going to go ahead and tweet this out real quick and put it on the Facebook. But if you would be so kind, well, I guess I'll introduce myself, or I'll introduce you first. I worked with you first at Kern, but I didn't really get to work with you too much, just kind of a little bit in passing here and there. And then the from Kern, I kind of saw you here and there at I think in the summer PDs, but then I saw you at the Casaloma PD, and you were with Amy, right? And,
Yes. Yeah,
and
Amy Luder. And
yeah, and that was a fantastic session. And so I want to see if I could capture your PD and your thoughts in a little bottle here and share it with people. So
yes, absolutely.
if you could go ahead and if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm April Fox. I am an academic coach for Bakersfield City School District Special Education Mild to Moderate Department. I have been in education for going on 6 years, but I jokingly say this is my second life. My previous life, I was in finance management and ended up in their training department, if you will. So training has kind of been in my background for good 15, 20 years. I really did not want to state that number, but I did. So I love training. I always love training. And I didn't love the travel that came with it. So I thought, well, if I continue the training piece, but keep me in one city, what would that be? Education.
Yeah.
So here I am.
And what credential do you have? Are you mild to moderate or?
Yes, education specialist, mild to moderate. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
and a master's in special education.
Cool. What made you transition into special education, or what made you like? What was that calling?
It was in the family. Actually, it runs in the family, and I've had the opportunity in high school. I did a lot of work with people with special needs, and I really kind of gravitated to it. And after I was in special education program, my husband and I had a child with Down syndrome. So it's really kind of I don't know, beautiful how it all just came together in that way.
Yeah,
it's almost poetic. Like,
yeah. No, that's cool. That's a conversation I had with somebody recently about it being a calling, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
you don't know when you're called, I guess, or you don't know how that calling comes, but when it comes, it comes. And
it comes, yeah. And it's been really nice that I've been able to my career hasn't been solely in special education. I've really had a fortunate opportunities to work in co-teaching models where I'm also working with general education teachers and students. And so I'm really getting the best of both worlds, which I love, especially in math. I just love it.
Yeah, that's what I remember now. That's where you were kind of blowing me away, what I was watching, and I enjoyed it. So let's see. So let's hop into this. So part of the reason I asked April in was that presentation that I saw, but also because in a class that I get to be in or teach in about a week or about a month here, they're going to be designing lessons, and as we know, like if we're not designing these lessons, like with with special needs and accommodations, and then even at-risk students in mind, and we're not making the lessons for them, right? And I think that's usually the best way to start, cast the net wide and kind of bring everybody in. So let's talk first just with like lesson design. And I guess let's talk with math, because I now that you reminded me of the math, what would be like suggestions for you? So if we're doing something like inquiry-based, maybe like it's project-based learning or something, even now because everything's online, what is our starting point when we're designing a lesson and we want to take into account like special needs and accommodations?
So the first thing I would go to is UDL principles, Universal Design for Learning. And Universal Design for Learning isn't just a strategy for special education. It really is a strategy that described exactly what you were stating. It casts the net so that all learners will have access to this particular lesson. And UDL principles are designed at the beginning, at the start of lesson planning. And what Universal Design for Learning suggests is that you have three main principles: engagement, representation, and expression. And you're essentially giving the students choice with whatever activities or lessons that you're presenting for your students. So for instance, if I want to have my students do a research-based project on, you know, I don't know, photosynthesis for science, you would give them several choices of activities for a student to choose from, which draws to their individual strengths. You could have one student do, you know, a video that describes what photosynthesis is. You could have another student do a slides presentation. You could have another student do a Google form. So it's really encompassing many different options that your students can choose from that will draw on their strengths.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So the differentiation in the assessment, like not
Yes.
just in the instruction, but in the assessment too.
Yes, so it's really offering choice in the delivery of your lesson, how you and the students represent the content, and in expression, how are they going to show you that they have learned it, offering them choice on how they're going to show you. And that is really a very small description of what it is. We could go into a lot of details about it. In fact, we have a few PDs coming out that go into more detail about it. But you know, that's just one strategy. There are definitely other methods that could be tied into the lessons, like virtual manipulatives. I think virtual manipulatives are a hot item right now.
How does that work, or like what?
Well, there are several different websites that provide that. Didax. I don't know if you have heard of Didax. Didax.com was actually introduced over summer school for special education, and that's D as in dog, IDAX. And they have just a plethora of virtual manipulations online, like Cuisenaire rods. They have math balances. A lot of these activities we actually did in that PD for Casaloma, and they're virtual. So if a teacher was leading a lesson in math, for instance, you can have some of these virtual manipulatives up and post on a Google Classroom or up on your screen share for Zoom, and use that to start conversations, you know, with your students. What, you know, explain what this area model represents, or let's take this math problem and represent it using Cuisenaire rods. What are the different ways that we can represent it?
Yeah.
And move into collaboration sessions with that. It's really about making math visual. And these virtual manipulatives allow us to do that.
No, these are legit. I'm looking at them right now. It really is everything that you can have in the class. It's all online. That's crazy.
I mean, you've got Rec and Recs. You've got, my favorite are the math balances. I mean, those math mobiles with the mobile puzzles. I mean, that is an excellent way to reinforce an equal sign, which is just a poorly understood math operation in general. Helps to introduce equations and how the balance within equations. You can use it for, you know, algebraic thinking all the way down to third grade, even lower, even some lower grade levels.
Yeah, no, this is cool. This is wow. You're gonna slow down. We're only like 5 minutes in, and you're already you already blew me away.
So that we can see just how fantastic this website is. I mean, there's so much you could do with it. We could have a full PD day just on this website.
What other websites or what other resources? Now you got to keep them coming.
You got it. So Mathlearningcenter.org is another one. They have a lot of lessons that are already on there, a lot of them tailored to virtual learning. And they also have some visual manipulatives, some virtual manipulatives. It's not quite at the level of Didax, but it's still an excellent, excellent website. We've got Do you remember the math mobiles we did in that PD?
I remember, I remember everything we did in that one was all hands-on. So we all had everything. We had everything there. So
Yes.
that's why this is kind of tripping me out, because I didn't realize that everything we did there was like accessible online. But I mean, I guess I never imagined that we would need it, right?
Right. But I mean, that's actually the nice thing about it. If we think about it,
Yeah.
like you said, everything that we had was hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we talk about math, we talk about the CRA model, right? The
Yeah.
concrete, representational, and abstract. Most of our students, the research shows 60 to 80% of our students need heavy focus in that C and that R.
Mm-hmm.
But just because we're virtual doesn't mean that we have to lack in that area. It just means that we do it virtually now, but we still have those same manipulatives available for our students.
Yeah.
And so when we have these manipulatives, they're manipulating it online. They're still able to manipulate it and still able to grasp it and help reinforce conceptual understanding. It's just a different platform in which we do it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Any other ones, any other sites that you can think of right off the top of your head?
So we have a couple fun ones. These are going to be, I think, more towards asynchronous learning. It actually could be on a synchronous platform. It could be a what do you notice, what do you wonder? But mathplayground.com has your Cuisenaire rods. And Solve Me, this one's my favorite, solveme.edc.org.
I'm tweeting them out right underneath it too. Solveme.edc.org.
Yes.
Oh, this is cool.
The math mobiles.
Yeah.
These are probably one of my favorite lessons to teach and to show teachers to teach. We have a lot of lessons that are that incorporate these mobiles and math puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Bowler, Kathy Williams, they have done a couple lessons that are heavy on these math mobiles. We've kind of drawn from their lessons a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, along with this website, we kind of tailored our own lessons using their resources.
Yeah.
But it's an excellent way to, again, reinforce the balance, particularly with equations, getting into 5th grade, 6th grade, even into 7th grade, all leading up to linear equations. So
yeah, this is cool. This is really cool. And it's needed, you know, it's because we're going online, right?
Yes.
So
and the kids like it.
Yeah.
Kids enjoy it. They think of it as a game, and you can have those rich conversations as they're playing it. Like, what do you think is going to happen to one side of the mobile if I take one of these shapes off? What would happen to the other side?
So let me ask you this one. This one, I don't know. It's I guess. So so like for me, I understood kind of the element of play, like with when I was doing with the middle school students, I understood that one pretty well. And then when I got to elementary, the kind of the element of play was harder for me because I didn't realize like that almost anything could be play. Like they were really tactile. Like, you know, you give them, of course, I mean, I know that in hindsight, because I got kids, you know, you give a kid a box and like, you don't even got to give them a toy. You give them a box and they love the box more than the toy inside of it. But
Sport City.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, like those parts are obvious, but then it wasn't until probably like the middle of the year of my first year teaching 3rd grade that I finally like understood how to start making the connections from like the play to getting it, you know, into the content. Like what does play look like for a kid that has special needs within the virtual setting? So let's say this is, you know, August 25th or something, and there's a teacher that's doing their math lesson. Like, what does the element of play look like for that, for let's say a 6th grade student who might be pushing into a regular or into a general education classroom?
That's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. So an element of play, let's start with the classroom first. When we are in small group and we have manipulatives, we introduce the manipulatives. Do we just jump in and start teaching with them?
No.
We don't. We can't. We won't be successful that way because the kids need that playtime. They need to get the sillies out. And you know what? Join in on that fun. Have fun with them. And then as time goes on, they're going to start pulling away from the play and start coming into your lesson. So you start with a longer period of play time, and then you slowly reduce that play time and increase your learning time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, again, letting them get the sillies out. They're kids. They're going to play with them, you know, joke around with them. That's building a relationship with them too. It's twofold. And then after that, in time, they're going to come down and they're going to be ready to work. They're going to get the sillies out. They're going to be ready to play. So you have to have that expectation and allow that play to happen. But something else that's really brilliant about allowing that play to happen is that there's learning taking place while they're exploring and while they're playing. And there's actually, I believe it is the mathplayground.com website has the area builder. I may have to pull that up again. But there's actually an explore option and then the game itself.
Okay.
And the explore option, I think, is so profound when it comes to learning. Because when you're giving students the opportunity, let's transition from an actual classroom and playing with manipulatives to the virtual model now.
Yeah.
All of these websites are excellent in reinforcing conceptual understanding in mathematics. But something that has to happen first is, like you said, that playtime. So something that can be a asynchronous lesson or opportunity is allowing your kids to explore these websites and to play. And then you come back and you talk about, what did you notice when you were playing? What did you notice with this area builder? What did you notice in the explore? What kind of shapes were you able to build? What kind of area did it create? And that can really get the conversation started with the play and the explore.
This is cool. No, thanks. I really appreciate it. This is really, really cool. I'm looking. So some of them do cost, but it's not crazy. Like it's not, I mean, I know like we have to pay a lot, you know, as teachers, you know, and so but it's doable. And if you're a principal and you listen to this, it's doable. Okay.
Principals, admins, yes.
Yeah, if you're an admin, you got to check some of these out because these are doable.
But some of them, a lot of them, we try to really hone in on the ones that are going to be free and free for our students to explore. So some of them will cost for membership. A lot of them are giving, during the closures, are giving free memberships, which is nice, so that our students are able to, you know, to have access to these manipulatives when they're not at school. Another thought for manipulatives too is, especially for the younger kids, teachers having a scavenger hunt with your students. So have a little scavenger hunt, have your students go find whatever they have in the house. You know, every house is going to vary with supplies, obviously, but you know, grab Cheerios, grab cotton balls, grab paper clips, grab whatever items that they can find 20 of and make an array out of. You know, so whatever items in your scavenger hunt then can become your manipulatives.
That's cool.
Can use at home. So so we'll have the virtual manipulatives, and then we can also have the concrete manipulatives in front too.
No, that's cool. And that's that could be a whole conversation in of itself of what everybody brought out. That's cool.
A little sharing.
So this brings me, because you're touching out, you touched on it a couple times and you've said it, but in the conversations I've had with people, everyone mentions the building relationship component, right? And because I think so, and it's actually, I think this is a part on education that's tough, but you know, we want kids to sit down, we want kids, you know, hey, sit in that chair, you know, and hey, facing forward, you got to be doing this. And so that's like an element of compliance, right? And I fear that, you know, maybe we're going to try and bring that compliance back into this virtual space when that compliance doesn't really need to be there. So my question to you is the especially if we're going to be asking kids to be there, sitting there for a long period of time, like how do we honor the fact that like they won't sit there that long? So you've already mentioned, you know, like a scavenger hunt, you're mentioning like manipulatives. I guess what I'm saying is, what can we do to make an environment, a digital environment, where kids feel comfortable to participate for however long we're asking them to participate?
Well, let's think of it in this regard. How well do our kids sit through a lecture and notes in person?
How well do we sit?
And by kids, I really mean me, because I'm just how well do I sit through lecture and notes? Well, and it's no secret that, the research says that the more we engage our students, the better learning takes place, because they don't have a chance to zone out, or they don't have a chance to, and a lot of the learning, for a lot of our students, it's not that they don't want to learn, it's they don't want to admit that they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't want to admit that they don't get it. Who wants to do that? Think of it from our kids' perspective. It's embarrassing for them to admit, hey, I don't get it. So instead, I'm going to act out, or I'm going to get squirrely, or I'm going to go play with my friends, or I'm going to go start a conversation over here, or I'm going to act out so I can get sent out. So really, our kids their brains are not designed to sit through lessons. So my advice, sit through like lecture and notes. So my advice would be is that during the synchronous instruction, we make it as engaging as possible. And then the asynchronous, we can have just as profound learning take place during the asynchronous as we can during the synchronous. So the synchronous, I think, needs to be very engaging, utilizing a lot of the breakout sessions to spark conversations. We have developed several lessons that actually require students to manipulate slides or objects on slides. So for instance, I could have a slide up and I use several shapes or even pictures of money. Some of our special ed PD presenters shared a presentation where they used pictures of money, and students actually had to drag the money onto the screen to manipulate the money to represent the amount. But the point is that the more that we can engage the students, the more successful we're going to become. And we can't expect that, we can sit in front of a computer and talk and have everybody in our classroom respond the same way they would in a classroom. Because they don't really in a classroom unless we have them engaged and actually having conversations, using manipulatives.
What are some things that you've seen that well, I guess because this is going to reach, there's right now in that one class there's like 30 signed up, so and they're already teaching it. So to 30 educators, what would you say, what would you like them to know, with school starting in 2-3 weeks here?
I heard somebody say, and I wish I could remember who it was, but somebody said, this year we're all first year teachers. And boy, ain't that the truth.
Yeah.
But I will say this. Let's think about how we got into this profession. We all got into this profession because it was the easiest profession out there, right?
For the big bucks.
Whoa, no. Think about what it takes to be an educator. We have these TPAs, we have to pass the CBEST, we have to pass the CSETs, we have to pass the RECA. Most of them go to school at night while lesson planning. It's tough to become an educator. And I think I learned more about what it means to be resilient, just as much as education itself when I went through the credentialing program. And I say all that just to say this, that we have such a resilient group of teachers. Our teachers, boy, when it comes to overcoming odds and hard work and just when facing challenges, this profession, bar none, is the best for this challenge. And I will also say that in addition to the technological advances we have now, we are really equipped to face this challenge. I truly believe this. Imagine if we had this pandemic 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Would we be in this position with all of these wonderful resources?
No, not at all.
So I really believe that, now, is it going to be hard? Is it challenging? Absolutely. I'm not saying it's not. All I'm saying is that we are equipped to face this challenge and really give our students what they need. And by no means do I believe that it means watering down the curriculum or lowering our expectation for student learning. I think we can make a great impact this year. We're just gonna have to be creative and rely on each other, really. Listening to your podcast in the last episodes, I'm like jotting down all this great stuff. And
there's some I've learned a lot. I'm like, man, if you want to learn a lot, you got to invite people to talk to you.
yes. Who is that? They were talking about, was it Dwayne Haubecker?
Yeah,
From Ed County?
Yeah.
As soon as I was listening to it on a run, it just made me run home faster so I could remember his name and look up his website, his Twitter account, his YouTube.
He's got everything. He's got everything there.
Yes, it was so good. So just platforms like this, Twitter is an excellent platform. I think the community lessons that you're doing is phenomenal. And I think the more we rely on each other, the better equipped we'll be to serve our students to the best of our ability, really.
But so with because I think sometimes in the general ed classroom, well, I taught special ed for 1 year. I started out doing and I loved it. And I know I could see that a student on an IEP can get lost in the fray easily, or a student, that's at risk can get lost in the fray easily. Like, how do we make sure that in this digital fray where it might be easier to get lost, how do we make sure that they aren't getting lost, or what does that look like for you?
Right. And students don't have to be on an IEP for us to fear that they're going to get lost. You mentioned at-risk students. So, and a side note, I think that's why co-teaching is so profound, is because we can get that group before they get to the IEP, that maybe some things should be on one. And really with multiple educators. But I think if we could use our time wisely, it's really going to come down to having, looking at what our district appoints for our schedule, and breaking that down even further, having a very detailed schedule where you can meet the needs of the students in smaller breakout sessions, in small groups. If you are a special educator and you have a paraprofessional, you can absolutely do little breakout groups and service those students at their individual needs, and group them based on their needs. There's multiple ways to see what the child knows. Because starting the school year, when we closed in March, we had a good idea of where our kids were, or we should have had a good idea where our kids were. We're starting this year off not really knowing where our kids are. So with that regard, I would make a few suggestions. One, we know how important parent contact is. Contact every single parent on your roster with good feedback. And that applies during a regular school year, not just after closure. Your first contact with a parent should never be a negative call or to schedule an IEP meeting. It should always be a positive contact first. So your parent is a resource. Secondly, if you're having a hard time maybe connecting with a student or finding out what their current levels are because they're not participating, reach out to their former teacher. I've done that several times, where I reached out to a previous teacher to get information on that student, so that we can have a better idea starting the year off of what their abilities are. And then you can start grouping your students that way.
That makes sense. So it is going to require us to be more collaborative. I think, like, naturally, I think on the school site, we're really collaborative, that we're always in the hallways, we're always asking, we're always, we just have to now reach out by phone, by text, by email, whatever.
We have to make a conscious effort to reach out now. Yes, especially if it's a different school, a feeder school. We have to reach out to another school to get information about the student. I think that's incredibly important.
So this is also going to go out to new teachers, and then new teachers and some that are going to be going into teaching. What advice do you have? I guess first advice for the new teacher who may be because we still have like PIPs and STIPs, or somebody that's brand new, and they might not, they might not have gotten the summer PD, or they might not have taken that class yet in their credential program. What advice would you give to them starting out in, in this virtual setting?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. We are doing our new teacher training, new teacher orientation starting next week. And I would say this to anybody, whether you are a 10-year veteran or brand new to the industry, is that don't be afraid to reach out for help. And whether it's somebody at your school site, whether it's another teacher, whether it's an academic coach, contact me. I don't even have to be in your program. I would love to give you little pointers here and there. I mean, that's my job. That's what I want to do, is to support you. I would also say that to new teachers and some of our veteran teachers that, if you have a coach that you're working with, particularly if you have students in your class that may be on an IEP, reach out to your coach and we can help be a teacher if you assign us as teacher in your Google Classroom, we can also drop some of these resources in for you. And, if you need some help on, hey, I'm not quite sure how to lead this lesson, we can go in and do that with you. So don't be afraid to reach out to us. We really are excited and anxious to do this with you. And I think the more we collaborate and do this together, the better off we're all going to be, our students especially.
Cool. No, that man, this was cool. Wow, that was a lot of good stuff. Like, I don't know, yeah.
So next session, can I turn the camera on you, because I know you have got quite some experience yourself, my friend. Got a lot of things. Look at your background. Look at your wall back there.
Yeah, no, I set it up this year, but no, look, so if I'm honest, my first 3 years that I was teaching at CSUB, I liked it and I would always share all my stuff. But at some point, I got to a point where I felt like, am I showing off, or I'm just sharing my own work, and I like it, and I think people are getting something out of it, but I'm limited to my own experience.
Yes.
And then I just started, and that's why I started this too. So I started this back in the spring, and then it was pretty humbling because everyone I talked to is next level, and I was like, man, I need to make sure I'm humble and acknowledge that I only know what I know because I'm around all these amazing people.
I think I feel that way every time I step into a PD or talk to another educator. But I mean, we have to think of it this way. This is the one industry where plagiarizing and stealing people's ideas makes you a good.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
So I am not a very creative person. Yeah. I'm just not.
You have to define what you mean by creative.
Huh?
You have to define what you mean by creative, because the last 29 minutes were all really creative to me.
It's all other people's ideas.
Yeah.
Point taken. But it really is. It's reaching out, staying current. That's another advice for new teachers. Even when you're done and you're graduated, let me tell you something, you're not done. You're never done. You may have that degree, but don't get to a place where you are done. Because as you're probably hearing now, we are constantly learning new things and bouncing ideas off each other. And that it's going to do is benefit our kids. I mean, that's all. It's so small, but we just have so much to learn from each other and so much that we could give to each other. But it's just going to make us better.
It's community, right? Because we're all it's just a community, and we're helping raise the kids of our community, and it just so happens that our profession has a lot of best practices and a lot of great ways, but at the end of it all, this is our community, right? They're all going to be future something, future teacher, future anything, and you're going to see them, and you had your chance to you know what I mean, to help raise that person. I mean, think about all the teachers that you have. Yeah, because I one of the things that I always think about, that I always So one of the guys that was a principal when I was at my mom's school in sixth grade, my mom was a teacher and then the principal at the time. But when I was teaching at a school like 15, 20 years later or something like that, he was there at that school and he was a teacher. And I was like, whoa, one day, you know what I mean? Like one day some of these little kids, like they might be my boss and they're going to be like, oh, Gonzalez is so old school. He still uses Google Classroom.
Twitter is so yesterday.
Yeah, he's still with that Twitter, that TikTok. Hey, Gonzalez.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, but no, this is cool. I appreciate it. Do you want to share anything else, or you got anything else to share on?
Let me give one more little website share. Especially for special education teachers, but it doesn't have to just be for them. It's for anybody who wants to use these resources. If you're a special education teacher, you know you have students on an IEP that also have other resources, other service providers. We have a couple websites that were created by the special education department that have more accommodations listed. They have more ideas on how you can service these students, more resources.
Is it the BCSD one?
There's two BCSD ones. There's gobcsd.com/75, which is the Mild Mod website. I think it was created by Amy Luter, Stephanie Wood, Crystal Gonzalez, Jody Gonzalez. It was before I came on board, but these ladies did a fantastic job putting that website together.
Yeah.
And again, it has resources for ELA, math. I mean, you name it, it's in there.
I'm tweeting it out right now.
We're constantly updating it. So, if you haven't been on it in a couple months, there's going to be new material posted in there.
Cool.
And then there's also gobcsd.com/CUU, which is the special ed distance learning website. And if you have students who receive other services like adaptive PE,
backslash what?
CUU.
Okay, got it.
And that website is for distance learning, but it also has sections for other services like speech or adaptive PE or OT, PT, some of these other services aside from academic services, specialized academic services. So there's some more research or more resources in those two websites as well.
No, this is cool. Like this is, yeah. Wow, this is why I came. This is what I came for. Yeah, April, thank you. I really appreciate it. I think a lot of people are gonna get, they're really gonna appreciate the work that you all did here. But yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. And then I'm gonna stop the stream and then don't hang up yet, all right?
Okay, sounds good.